Welcome to the deep dive. You know those incredible pictures, those high altitude landscapes?
Mm,
The Himalayas, the Andes, the Karakorams, just stunning.
Absolutely awe-inspiring places. They really draw you in.
They do, but what if the biggest challenge isn't, the climb itself? What if it's something happening inside the trekker?
That's exactly what we're digging into today. It's this kind of invisible battle.
Right. We're calling this deep dive the invisible battle, mental fortitude and environmental extremes in high altitude trekking. So it's not just about sore muscles and catching your breath.
No, not at all. We're looking at the mental journey, the emotional side of pushing yourself into these really extreme environments.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack how the thin air, the environment, how it actually messes with your thinking, your judgment, even how you feel emotionally.
Yeah, and why that mental prep is just as vital as, say, physical training for actually surviving up there.
And we've got a great source for this, highaltitude.pdf from MI Adventures. It seems to pull together research, studies, and insights from really experienced mountaineers.
It does. Gives a really rounded picture. And it starts with the core challenge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Every step up. Less oxygen, hypoxia.
The silent adversary, as the source calls it, so less oxygen. How bad does it get, and what's it doing beyond just making you tired?
Well, think about it. At 18,000 feet, you're dealing with about half the oxygen you get at sea level.
Half. Wow.
Yeah, so muscles tire faster, coordination gets shaky, you're gasping for air, even just sitting still. But the really critical part is what it does to your brain.
Okay, so talk us through that. How does the lack of oxygen actually impair your thinking?
There's solid research on this. A 2017 study mentioned in the source found a significant decline in executive function. There's things like planning, organizing, and working memory above just 3,500 meters.
Just 3,500? That's not even super high for serious treks.
Exactly. And this was even in people who are already acclimatized. So it impacts everyday stuff you absolutely need up there. Planning your route, keeping gear sorted, just talking clearly to your team.
So people literally get slower mentally, make more mistakes.
Yeah, measurable drops in attention span, ability to switch tasks, solve problems. They struggle to adapt.
And the source mentions brain scans.
Neuroimaging confirms temporary changes in the prefrontal cortex activity. That's your decision-making hub. And sometimes these effects can linger even after you come down.
Like a residual fog.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Simple decisions suddenly feel, overwhelming.
And this mental drain must make the physical risks even worse, right?
Absolutely compounds it. Another review from 2015 talked about how chronic low oxygen messes with neurotransmitters. This affects motivation, reaction speed, emotional control.
Which
Which means trekkers might skip safety checks, forget to hydrate, not look after themselves properly, makes them much more vulnerable.
Reinhold Messner, the mountaineer, he said something like, at high altitude, you think slowly. That's where you begin to understand how thin the margin is between life and death.
That really nails it, doesn't it? The stakes are incredibly high.
Okay, so hypoxia creates this mental fog. Then there's acute mountain sickness, AMS. That's the physical side kicking in.
Yeah, it stems directly from the hypoxia, pretty common above 8,000 feet. Starts with things like headache, no appetite, nausea, fatigue. Seems mild initially.
But it can get serious fast.
Very fast. It can escalate to HACE, that's high-altitude cerebral edema, swelling in the brain, or APE, high-altitude pulmonary edema, fluid in the lungs. Both are potentially fatal if you don't descend immediately.
So how do you know? When do you push on? When do you bail? That seems like a critical judgment call, especially when your judgment might already be impaired.
Exactly. And a 2018 review stressed this. Mild AMS is common, okay, but recognizing it early and changing your behavior like resting or descending is key.
Yeah.
Pushing through without assessing the situation, that's a major cause of bad outcome.
And feeling unwell like that, constantly, it must just wreck your head mentally.
Oh, definitely. It erodes morale, chips away at your confidence. You start feeling really vulnerable emotionally.
Oh, so?
Well, the uncertainty kicks in. Is this headache just dehydration, or is it the start of something serious? That creates fear, second-guessing. You doubt yourself, doubt your decisions.
Magnifies everything.
Yeah, every step feels heavier. The psychological stress can be as bad as the physical stuff. Plus, you can get anxious, irritable, even depressed. That puts a huge strain on group dynamics, too.
Peter Habler said, the mountain doesn't test your muscles as much as it tests your mind. Which leads to this interesting point the source makes about mental strength. You'd think it's purely a good thing.
You would, yeah. Grit, determination.
But the source calls it a double-edged sword. How can being mentally strong be dangerous?
It comes back to that hypoxia messing with the prefrontal cortex, with your judgment. That same drive, that grit that gets you up there, can make you ignore warning
Well,
signs.
you push too hard.
Exactly. You might misjudge how long something will take, skip a safety check, get disoriented, but you feel okay because you're mentally toughing it out. And one lap's up there.
Cascading effects, especially in a team.
Precise.
And the mental fatigue just piles on top of the physical exhaustion. The source mentioned emotional numbness.
Yeah, it's quite alarming. People describe losing interest in eating, not drinking enough, maybe not noticing if a teammate is struggling.
They become detached.
Sort of, yeah. Detached from the risks, maybe even their own discomfort, which stops them making those vital self-care decisions. It really is a battle inside your own head.
That quote from Ed Viesturs makes so much sense then. The summit is optional, getting down is mandatory. It's about judgment over ambition.
Absolutely. And it's not just the lack of oxygen. Once you get higher, say above 12,000 feet, you've got other things working against you. Wind and cold.
Right, more invisible enemies. How bad can they be?
Oh, easily 50-mile-per-hour winds that
Yeah.
blasts you, cuts visibility, messes with your balance.
Yeah.
And the wind chill accelerates heat loss massively. Frostbite becomes a real, immediate danger.
And the cold itself.
Just drains your energy. Your body burns so many calories, uses precious oxygen just trying to stay warm. Combine that with being tired, maybe a bit dehydrated.
Yeah.
Hypothermia risk shoots way up.
So these things just pile on the mental strain.
They really do. It creates this constant low-level anxiety. A dropped glove isn't just annoying, it could be serious. A misstep, ignoring a shiver. Your mental reserves are already low, so any little thing can tip the balance.
Anatoly Bukrev from that 96 Everest disaster, he said, "Speed is not the key. Judgment is. The mountain does not care how strong or brave you are. It just waits."
Chilling, really.
It is. It highlights the environment's indifference and how crucial clear thinking is.
So given all this, the hypoxia, the AMS risk, the wind, the cold, the mental fog,
Yeah.
how do you even prepare for something like this? It sounds like physical fitness is only part of the story.
A really important part, but yeah, only part of it. Physically, you need that slow acclimatization, the rest days. Some people use hypoxic pants or masks beforehand to try and pre-adapt.
But the mental conditioning, what does this source say about training your mind? It's critical. Melissa Arnott, the guide, put it perfectly. You train your body for strength, but your mind must be trained for resilience. It's your mind that will get you off the mountain when everything else wants to quit.
So how do you train resilience for that kind of pressure?
The source mentions techniques like visualization, mentally rehearsing tough situations, mindfulness, trying to stay present. Scenario planning is huge, thinking through what-if situations and how you'd react.
Practicing decisions under stress.
Yeah, and really knowing yourself. What are your personal warning signs? Irritability, feeling disoriented, panic starting to creep in. Building that self-awareness is key for when your judgment is compromised.
It sounds like knowing your own mind is crucial, but climbing isn't usually solo, is it? What about the team aspect?
Hugely important. Group training, team building. It builds trust, improves communication. That lets the team share the emotional load, When one person's struggling, others can step up.
And empathy. The source calls it a critical tool for survival.
It really is. It's like the emotional glue holding the team together. Think about it. Spotting subtle signs in a teammate, maybe they've gone quiet or they were moving slower, seem irritable, and responding to that can make all the difference.
Just checking in, offering support.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
can genuinely help someone push through. It's not just being nice, it's functional. It helps the whole team persevere. There's that saying, you don't just climb with your legs, you climb with your heart. Empathy is part of that heart.
It really strips everything back, doesn't it? High altitude, comfort, ego,
Yeah.
gone. Just breath, thought, the next step.
Yeah, it forces a recalibration. Demands respect for nature and honesty about your own limits.
And facing the hypoxia, the cold, the wind, you're also facing your own fear, your own doubt, your fatigue.
But fear, if you acknowledge it, can actually be useful. It sharpens your senses, makes you more humble, more careful.
And with preparation, staying present, having that team support, you can turn that fear into focus.
That's the idea. And maybe that courage, just to keep putting one foot in front of the other when everything is uncertain. Maybe that's the real summit people reach, long before the physical peak.
That's a powerful thought. It applies way beyond mountains, doesn't it? Any big challenge where you face the unknown, where doubt creeps in.
Where the real progress is internal, yeah.
Which brings us back to Sir Edmund Hillary. His words seem like the perfect wrap-up for this.
They really do. It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves.